Live at the Pentagon. Big hearing on Capitol Hill concerning the H1N1 vaccine. Where is it and who needs it? Let's get live to Molly Henneberg. She's in the D.C. newsroom across from the Capitol.
Hi, Trace. In the hearing that's just about to get underway, the senators want to know where the vaccine is and why it's still taking so long to get to those in high-risk categories. Meanwhile, earlier today on the House side, some Democrats are proposing legislation that would require businesses to offer 5 paid sick days in case of the flu to protect coworkers and customers. Opponents say most employers already provide sick or personal time, and a federal mandate would force them to cut or alter other benefits. Trace?
Molly Henneberg live for us in D.C. President Obama in China today with a very stern warning for Iran concerning its nuclear program. Let's get to Mike Emanuel. He's live for us on the North Lawn. Mike.
Trace, President Obama warned that Iran has an opportunity to present and demonstrate its peaceful intentions for its nuclear program. But the president warned that if the Iranians do not take this opportunity, there will be consequences. Chinese President Hu Jintao was not as firm, but U.S. officials predict that if Iran does not start complying, the U.S. and China will be united. Trace?
Mike Emanuel live at the White House. That is brand new information at the bottom of the hour.
All right, so there are 2 big stories here that we want to discuss with regard to Iran right now. There's the new report from the Times of London that claimed that there have been some negotiations going on between the IAEA, primarily Al-Baradei, and the Iranian officials concerning possibly lifting sanctions. There was a suggestion that there was some kind of side deal going on between Al-Baradei and the Iranian nuclear negotiator. Now, joining me right now is Judith Miller. She's an adjunct fellow at the Manhattan Institute. She's also, of course, a Fox News contributor, and Heather Hurlburt, who's an executive director of the National Security Network. She's also a former speechwriter for President Clinton, as well as 2 secretaries of state, where she was involved in all of these issues as well. So welcome to both of you. Now, Judy, you want to clarify that report. Now, then that's based on there was a photograph today of the 2 of them sort of talking conspiratorially that was on our website and in other places as well, that suggested that Al-Baradei, in order to sort of go out on a high note, wanted to get some concessions from the Iranian government on their nuclear program, and in return, that Al-Baradei would promise to sort of soften some of those sanctions. You say that report's not true.
Yeah, well, the administration says it's not true, and it says, moreover, that it would be shocked if there were talks at this point between Baradei, the head of that agency, and the Iranians that it was not aware of, because this is a very, very delicate moment in this process, and time is running out, and the IAEA itself issued this extremely discouraging and very hard report on what Iran has said about its program. So to have such negotiations at this point that the administration would not be aware of would not be helpful to try and resolve the situation.
Heather, what are your thoughts on that report?
Well, like Judy, everyone I've talked to has said that they believe this is untrue. And the other thing to keep in mind is that sanctions can't be lifted without the U.S. and our partners agreeing. So whether or not there are talks going on, nobody's going to be lifting sanctions right now.
All right, let's switch to the second topic, which is, perhaps more dramatic, and that is the development that perhaps the nuclear facility that we've seen the pictures of at Qom in Iran, and maybe we can pull up a picture of that, that there's no way, based on what they're learning about this facility, that it could be used for nuclear energy purposes.
Right. Now, the IAEA report, which is here, doesn't actually say that they're lying about the alleged purpose of this facility. But what they say is that there's a discrepancy between the capability of that facility and what they think its real intention is for. In other words, this facility can hold 3,000 P1 centrifuges, and it would take about 10 years to make enough fuel for a peaceful nuclear reactor for that time. And Iran itself said, well, this facility was intended to be a replacement for our main facility if America or someone else took military action against our plant. The IAEA basically says in this report that's not plausible.
So where does this leave it? Basically what you're laying out here from this report, and Heather, I want to get your thoughts on this too, is that Iran has a facility, the purpose of which, it appears from our intelligence, is only to build nuclear weapons. How far are they, Heather, based on your assessment and what you're learning, from having a nuclear weapon?
Well, this is something else that came out, Martha, in the IAEA report that was just issued, which is that they're actually running those centrifuges very slowly. And we don't know whether that's because of some technical problem or because there's a dispute within the Iranian government about how fast to move toward a weapon. So the report suggests that we're still at least 2 years away, which obviously isn't very long, but it's not tomorrow. The second thing to keep in mind is that we know all of this because negotiations got the IAEA back in to find out this information. So it's a great sort of demonstration.
But you look at that, and you look at the backdrop of the fact that until very recently, most people weren't aware that this facility even existed. So they tell us something, and great, we're all talking with the IAEA, but they're clearly doing stuff that the only reason they fessed up about this place was because it was uncovered, right?
Exactly.
That's actually not true. Intelligence has known about it for a couple of years.
Yes, but they didn't say
so they were
anything.
embarrassed.
They didn't let us people in
but
on
we
it.
were able to embarrass them, which is the sort of how we're making this progress.
So, Judy, let me put that same question to you, because this is what it all comes down to. This is why we even talk about Iran in these discussions. When could they have a nuclear weapon, and when could they threaten Israel with it, and perhaps the U.S. as well?
Well, the IAEA says that they have about 3,900 pounds of low-enriched uranium, which would be enough for 1 or 2 nuclear bombs if that material were enriched further.
And that's what's happening at this plant, the enrichment process?
No. It's just being enriched to a certain level.
Okay.
But since we don't really know whether or not there are other facilities, and that's the issue that the IAEA report raises, since we don't know how much they have and how quickly they could do that, we don't really know how far away they are. What we do know, according to this report, is that Iran is continuing to mislead the IAEA and the rest of the world about what it's doing and why it's doing it. And that means that the administration is already starting to think about a new set of sanctions that could really force Iran to think twice about this program.
Yeah. All right, so there we are. Thank you very much. We'll continue this discussion in future panel discussions. I know Heather Hurlburt, thank you very much for joining us from Washington. Good to have you with us. And Judy Miller, always good to have you with us. Thank you very much. Trace, back down to you.
Well, they worked for the Environmental Protection Agency for more than 20 years. But when this couple publicly criticized the White House approach to global warming, the EPA tried to silence them. Now, the House Ethics